Somebody else have a question?
I have a question on that last picture.
Yes, sir.
The lower right hand of your screen there, sir,
Yeah.
is quicksilver, cinnabar, and mercury. And I notice it's a retort. The picture implies that the dirty old miners are going down to a mercury store buying the mercury to separate. It seems to me a lot of folks don't understand that that's a natural resource. It is mined from the ground. The miner didn't put it there. And a lot of people are so misunderstood and led. And even that picture could be construed all about the dirty miners. Hey, it's a natural resource. There was approximately 300,000 class that was taken from Oregon to fight World War II. And Asians, when the war was over, mining mercury stuff.
Yeah.
So can you put that a little more clear that that's a natural resource?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. This is typically it occurs as cinnabar, and I'll explain the way the report works. You take the cinnabar ore, it gets put on a pan and gets put into the retort. It gets fired, and in a nutshell, what happens is yeah. So it vaporizes. You've got tubes coming off the side of this thing where it recondenses, and you get mercury, and it gets put in a flask and it gets shipped out. This area historically, the Meadows District, the area out, I guess today would be like Sam's Valley. That historically was the main area for mercury production in southwestern Oregon. You don't have to go very far north. You go up to Roseburg, to Douglas County, and that actually was a pretty large mercury production area. In fact, you've got the Bonanza mine, you've got the Elkhead mine, the Nonpareil mine. They were some of the biggest producers of mercury in the country. Now, overall, the most mercury production, as I recall, was in Texas and California. So the two biggest areas where we had mercury production in the United States. But even with those, we really, estimate, it's just an estimate, but the stuff I've read, at its best, during its best years, the United States only produced about anywhere from 9 to 10% of the world's mercury supply from those mines. And these are big mines. You talk about the mining history here. Most of the mines we're finding are small-scale mining. Some of the mercury mines we're talking about, especially those ones up in Douglas County, those were big commercial mines, big, well-developed mines. And even at that, they really weren't producing a lot. Again, Spain and Italy were the two big producers of mercury in the world. This just shows you we still work year-round, and these are some of the auxiliary cabins and sheds and typical things that we might find associated with the mine. And then there's also relic mining tools and equipment still out there. You tend to see more of this stuff in people's front yards, but we do come across it. Mining carts, actually the Truax automatic ore cart. We were just talking about this a little while ago. I think my crew found 7 mining carts on the whole district, and all the stuff we looked at. We've seen a lot more in people's yards, but of the ones we found, 5 of those were these Truax automatic ore carts, which were patented around the turn of the century. There's a jaw crusher that's sitting outside of this mill, one of the places we visited. Stuff like this is a good indication for us of how, and it's something I would use to explain to the public or somebody that was unfamiliar with mining, how they drove the tunnels, how they sunk a shaft. You find hand tools like this, and nothing else is probably a good indication that they were double jacking. On the other hand, in this instance, we found a setup bar for a pneumatic drill, and so that was helped us to date the mine in that particular instance to a given period. Now, mines as archaeological sites. And I know everybody's very interested in how the laws apply. We kind of touched on that, but that's really beyond the scope of what I'm talking about here. I'm just talking about, you look at the types of things you would expect to find at a Native American village, or better yet, let's say at a historic homestead. Okay, there's certain features that I'm going to expect to find in the layout for that homestead. There's going to be a structural, there's going to be a structural flat, even if there's no building still there. There's going to be a flat area where they have the cabin set up. There's going to be some sort of a pit, a privy pit, probably close by, that I'm going to expect to look for. Those are features that I would expect at a homestead. So things that kind of characterize mining sites. We talked about the actual features we would see. Now these are things that characterize how a mining site's formed. There's usually multiple chronological components. So a lot of people have been asking, how do you know that it's how do you know it's an old mine? Well, a lot of times I know it's an old mine because I've gone and I've done research and I find that, oh, there's records at the courthouse that say that this was located in, 1891. Okay, so I've got documentary evidence that tells me, okay, that this mine dates back to at least that period. Even if I don't have artifacts on the ground that can tell me that as an archaeologist, I know from the history, okay, it's at least that old. And it's typical. Most of these mines were reworked time and time again by different people throughout history. So multiple chronological components. You've got feature systems. What we mean by that is the easiest example would be to think in terms of like hydraulic mining. Or let's think in terms of an arrastra, a water-powered arrastra. Okay, you've got a ditch, which would be one feature. As an archaeologist, I would say that's one feature. You've got an overshot water wheel. That would be a second feature as an archaeologist that I would report. That's providing power for it. Then you've got the components of the arrastra, the physical structure itself. That would be a third feature. That would be something that I would call a feature system that I would record. Now, the feature systems, they vary according to the commodity that was being mined, which we already addressed, and they can be widely dispersed geographically. So you see this more when you go down into desert districts in the American Southwest, for example. Mines down there, they were very large, and different feature systems might be separated by miles. And you're walking across the landscape as an archaeologist and you're recording stuff. If you're not on top of it and thinking in terms of mining and what was involved in mining and the industrial process, you might not put it together that all of those are part of the same mine. In our area, because it's so mountainous and so rugged, you're not going to have things as widely dispersed, but we've got places where, this particular area, you've got stuff anywhere from 5 to 30 acres where you've got features on this site that are all part of the same mine. And so that's important to note. You've got horizontal stratigraphy. When you think about archaeology, a lot of people think, okay, archaeologists dig in the ground. You dig down, and the further down you dig, the further back in time you're going. It's the geological principle of superposition. That doesn't really apply at mining sites because typically if miners came in later on and they wanted to set up shop and start mining, they just moved to a different spot. They didn't try and build over what somebody else had there. Now that's not always the case. Let's say you may have a mill that was ideally located at the junction right below your workings and on a creek, and it might be ideal for you to go ahead and set your mill up on top of the ruins of the existing mill. Sometimes that happens, but more often you see different chronological components for these mines spread out over the site rather than vertically distributed. Mines are characterized by boom-bust cycles. You've got these, not only multiple periods of use, but it's characterized by it's used, it's abandoned for a while, it's reused again, it's abandoned again. It's just kind of a spotty history. And so part of our job really is to go back and do the best we can to reconstruct all of those different historical episodes to determine when a mine was used. And that boom-bust cycle, it's stimulated obviously by the economics, what's going on in the market, either locally or in the world market. It's stimulated by new technologies. Every time you've got new technology enter into this area historically, well, then mining would have an upswing again. The thing I'm thinking of is when cyanidization came into use. You saw a lot of mines gain new life at that point. People went back and started reworking the tailings and the waste rock piles that had been left dormant. You've also got feature cannibalism. It's typical of mines. Old stuff, miners come in and obviously 50 years ago, the miners came in and stuff that was 50 years older than that, they probably didn't give a rip. If it was getting in their way, they would simply get rid of it. More likely than that, they would recycle it and reuse it. And then you've got a whole bunch of underground features, and I'll come back to this plurality of names in just a second. But in terms of feature cannibalism, this particular stamp mill is one of my favorites that we found, and it shows you the ingenuity of mining and miners, and it shows you basically all of these principles we've talked about. You've got a stamp mill that we have historical documentation that this exact stamp mill was set up and in use by 1925. but it was not set up here at this spot. I know that because the tie-down bolts on the mortar block here, the mortar block is new concrete, and it's got, somebody stuck rebar in there to hold it up. It's pretty crazy, rather than actual tie rods. And so we don't know exactly where this was set up originally. I have a feeling that behind this, where somebody had taken a D8 cat and they'd made a nice area for them to come up and be able to load their ore in the mill, that probably was where the stamp mill was originally set at. So we know it's been moved, but it is a 1925 stamp mill. Obviously, this Toyota pickup truck is 1925. This is actually the motor that was driving the bull wheel on the stamp mill. It's a 1971, or not Toyota, it's a Datsun. Yeah, it's a 1971 Datsun truck that somebody had set up to run this thing. You've got a 1976 bed of a Toyota pickup that actually is their ore chute that allows them to drop ore in there. There's a bed of a Ford pickup that's off this picture here, but the Ford pickup was the ore bin. And you've got a lot of old timbers and different things that indicate that they reused things that they found on the site. And so that's typical of what you're going to find at a mine here. The lady in the back.
Two stamp? It's a two stamp.
5.
Two stamp. That mill is a two stamp. Want to bet money?
I got photos of it at home.
Want to bet? It's two stamp. Looked at it a dozen times.
Presidential executive order, how they came up with this National Historical Preservation Act, which that result in the new folks or people
Run by that little Datsun motor and transmission, and still had the front end of the Datsun pickup on the front of it. The two stamp, one of the stamps is busted. The ambulance.
I do remember that.
Have to be identified. I don't see the purpose and why they have to be identified as archaeological sites. I guess I'm trying to figure out, once they're identified, then what do the miners do from there? I know you had indicated that where they can be reminded stuff, but I don't get the connection why they're even going through this process, whoever they are.
Sure. Let me clarify that, because that's my fault. I didn't make it clear enough for you. Everything that we're going through is not an archaeological site. That's something to keep in mind. We're talking about archaeological sites, and stuff I'm showing you is some stuff that some of these, like
Out that way to the left.
the shots I showed earlier with environmental impact, where you have the trailer and the 2 cars, that's not an archaeological site. That's a mine, and it's a dump. And so it doesn't fit the definition, and there is a definition given for what an archaeological site is by the State Historic Preservation Office, and there's definitions in the National Historic Preservation Act as to what constitutes a historical site, which we were mentioning. And all that stuff's online. I would encourage you to go and read it. It doesn't take that long to read through.
Will that give us explanation of why there has to be a category of archaeological sites? I mean,
It will.
There's a reason for it,
yes,
right?
and if you read that National Historic Preservation Act, it will explain the whole purpose of it. And it's not just the NHPA. There's, I'm trying to think, what was it, the 1906 Antiquities Protection Act. There's a whole body of law that goes through and talks about things that are important for our cultural heritage, our history, and why they should be preserved. And so, I'm not going to we're running out of time. I'm not going to take the time to describe the laws now. You can read them for yourself. Every single one of them is online. If you go to the National Park Service, just look up archaeology laws, National Park Service. They've actually got a really nice website with links to all of the original legislation in PDF format that you can go and download it and read it for yourself. Yes,
There's
sir.
one more thing for this lady. I suggest also go to the State Historic Preservation Office website. They have a lot of good things on there.
Yeah, the Oregon SHPO, SHPO. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you forgot to list the outhouse that's on that site.
Yeah. So, I didn't, well, I think I did mention it. I said 2 support buildings. Those are your outhouses. Yes, sir.
In the case of this one, is this going to be an archaeological site?
It is, yeah, because it actually has a history on this particular mine.
It does definitely have a history. I can.
Located 1900. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
It's actually located before 1900.
So
That's actually the oldest lode mine in this district.
that's the
And I also know that the claim that's current has an unbroken chain of title
right,
since 1860.
I've talked to the assessment planner. Yeah.
Okay. So you've actually talked to the miner?
Not the guy who had the claim. I've talked to his assessment miner who he had come down from the,
Okay.
from
And needless to say, where there's, in that situation, will that stop mining on that claim?
No, again, we can't reemphasize that enough. What we're doing is not going to stop people from mining. So, you know, we're looking at it strictly from the standpoint of doing what's called the Section 106, the National Historic Preservation Act. The BLM's got a project where they're looking to identify any abandoned mines, and if they are abandoned, and there's a specific definition for that, which Dennis mentioned, and it's a hazard, like you've got a vertical shaft, you know, some of them hundreds of feet deep, and there's nobody working it, there's no claims on it. BLM is identifying those and determining, okay, if that needs to be closed. Well, according to national laws, BLM cannot do that, close that up, without going through a process of things, such as determining, is this of historical significance?
Right.
And is closing this mine going to have a detrimental effect on the historic significance of that site?
Right.
So that's what we're doing. But it's what we're doing is not going to stop anybody from mining.
I guess my biggest question is, do you have the realization with this particular claim in question? I know which one. I've been by it several times. There is an unbroken chain of title that goes back before the mill was even there. So that mill, through an unbroken chain of title, it belongs to the claim owner. I mean, have you considered that?
It's, I've thought about it, but again, you're getting into an area of legal issues. You know,
I guess my question is where you want to list it as an archaeological site, and obviously a lot of that has to do with basically how intact that mill is, and I think it's about 75% with besides the fact that it has been revamped. You know, there's really nothing stopping that miner from reusing that mill. It's his property. And I guess my question is how does what you guys do affect that?
It's a good question. Again, I'll just emphasize I can't answer for you.
Okay.
It's going to turn on legal interpretations, and you know, Dennis is always fond of pointing out to me. I read something legally, and I say, well, this says this, and he says, well, let me call my lawyer friends, see what they say, and then they have something totally different that they say, and it's, you know, and it's just a good reminder for me that that's something that Congress and lawyers and other people are going to have to figure out. I can't determine that.
Okay.
You're pointing out a very good issue, though, and it's there. I believe that you've got a really interesting gray area where you get archaeology laws and mining laws, and you know, you get environmental protection laws. You get all these things that are laws that we in Congress as a country have people that we've elected have passed them. And it seems like there's some conflicts and that's why you've got the judicial system stuff gets worked out. So, yes, sir.
Question, Ms. Dennis, I'm perceiving something that's like connecting the dots again. If I understand
the
right,
miner buried in that claim.
the attics, as well as the home,
Miner what?
The miner buried in that claim right next to the creek.
home, whatever
Found it?
technique that it is.
They don't know where it is.
Article on TV concerning this.
You found the grave?
And I watched that and I was totally amazed. What I perceive, you well know that these mines are rich. You know they are. That means they can be remined. Whereas a miner would come and open a claim on what you sealed off, knowing that there are minerals available. Therefore, EPA and all the laws required, that miner has just went to an avalanche of expense of reopening, since you kept saying, yes, it can be reminded. But look what the damage you have done to the workforce that's went into this. I see an incredible expense, and I see the intimidation of the miner from the land. And the mines are very rich, and you know everybody in this room does. So therefore, there are multiple members, just a grab bag, say 20 plus, but it's in the category. This is unacceptable, especially whenever you make.
Can I redirect you really? I mean, we're not talking about fixing the whole. I'm going to show you a little bit about them, but that's not for us to redress. That's for you to redress with the people at the BLM, your congressman. Call Obama and talk to him about it. He's my boss in the very industry. I can't help you on that right there. You can worry about it. You are. But you have to get the Congress to change the laws that I have to uphold.
So
Then
let's,
that's the truth.
we got a couple more questions. The gentleman in the back's been waiting.
Change our ground.
I recognized him from TV last night.
I think it's great archaeological finds like this to preserve them. Now, my question is this. Will people, it's for the benefit of the people that they can enjoy this. But if the roads are closed and people cannot get through it, it's kind of a waste of time, money, and effort. And I know that you guys aren't the guys to talk to, I need to go up the chain, I understand that. But my concern is the road closures, and here we're talking about preserving some things, and I think that's all wonderful, I really do. But if it's for the pleasure and enjoyment of the people should then have access to it. Now, in all fairness, you may have addressed all this before, and I apologize if you did. But again, my concern is if you do this with this particular line, for example, is there going to be an ingress and egress and access for people to get up to these things to enjoy them?
No, it's gated off.
So that's, yeah, you're getting into a separate issue. Gates on roads.
Fair enough.
I can't tell you, but yeah, there is a road that drives, as you know, right to it. So,
There's also a gate there.
yeah. Yes, sir.
What government agencies do you issue your information to? I mean, which ones are using it?
At the moment, just the BLM.
Yeah, this is just, we work for BLM. This is stuff that, we do our reporting, reports go to BLM, and because of the way that law we keep talking about, the National Historic Preservation Act, the way that's set up, we also send off reports to the State Historic Preservation Office. So those are two agencies that are getting reports on.
Directly
that we're reporting to directly. But we work for BLM. BLM is our boss, so.
To kind of finish what you were talking about, if there's a claimant on the mine and they request that we do not remediate something, we will not fix it, okay?
Hey, Mary, you sign something?
Yeah, excuse me?
I perceive that they will seal off very quickly before a mine can go in and reopen it, so therefore it'd be done too late. And it's already happening because there's several reasons that it's already sealed off.
There are?
Did they not show it on TV?
Yeah, they did.
Not in Southwest Oregon. I believe there's only one adit that we've closed. In Southwest Oregon. As a matter of fact, I'm certain.
And
Well, excuse me, on BLM. I don't know how much and what.
I see that these closures will take a lot of money, or that's taking money. So therefore, this has got to be closed.
You gotta talk to my boss about that kind of stuff and some other people. What can we do for you?
You close, said that you closed one mine,
One adit.
one adit. By what authority do you do that? I mean, what authority do you do that?
The BLM began a pilot program to remediate and, oh God, what's the other R word? To fix abandoned mine hazards, physical hazards and environmental hazards. They did pilot programs in 95, these are, yes.
We're running out of
I
time.
know.
Let's just make it simple. The authority, you've got to go back and look at, why does BLM have its authority? That's your answer.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
One more quick one, inquiring minds, I can't help
Yes, sir.
myself. If just this particular mine, as an example, is qualified as a historic point, my question is, and I'm really afraid of the antiquities that having an impact on our area. Now, if you have one of these, just one, or maybe more, I don't know what the number would be, if you have one of these located within the area, does that then open the gate and qualify it for the Antiquities Act to be signed? I know
Oh,
the president-
what you're talking about is would they designate it as a wilderness area?
A monument.
Or a monument.
The monument. Well, that's the Antiquity Act. I'm sorry if I'm getting out of you guys' category. It's just a question.
Well,
Why don't I, well, tell you-
I'm gonna put a stop to all the questions that are not related
Yeah.
to what these guys are trying to share. Because there's a presentation tonight on the archaeological interests across the Medford district that these guys are finding as a part of their inventory. We're not here to talk about the mining laws or the Antiquities Act or the fundamental laws that empower the BLM to take action on the public land.
settle on it. So if you have those kinds of questions, feel free to write them down on a piece of paper or to call our main numbers and ask for, the managers in charge to answer those questions. So we're not prepared to do that here tonight. We'd like them to finish their presentation, and if there's still time, we're going to be done at 8 o'clock, and we should be all out of here. So they can get
We got about
through.
4 more slides.
If we can put a fence on all that until they're
They're
done.
not getting out of it.
You gotta hand her that.
Well, I'm going to.
So,
She's the one to go after.
just real quick, in terms of getting back to
She's
the
a head
archaeology,
bitch.
interpreting
Oh,
a
no.
site, again, something like this, many of you probably know where this is at. This would be highly unusual to actually find this
I've never
on
seen
the
that.
ground.
No, I've never seen that one.
This dates to 1933-34. We've got good documentation of that. But the reason it's in the condition it is like this is because it was
I
actually
do know where
rebuilt
it's at.
in 1976 as part of the bicentennial celebration. It was refurbished. So that's what allows us to be able to look at this,
It's
and
the
because there's
turnaround
still
line. It's over the
a
Jacksonville.
good link, chain of title with the claimants on the site, we can get a good history of this and interpret it. So this is a typical milling operation. We've got gravity feed. We've got an overshot water wheel that provided power for part of the year, and it had a gas-powered, diesel-powered motor in this room that actually operated it the remainder of the year. You had a ball crusher, a ball mill, which parts of it are still on site. The ball mill, the parts that we were able to find date back to 1937. Then you had a primary crusher, a roller crusher in the first floor. Typically, when we come in and we find a mill site, it's not going to be anything like that. We're just going to see the tiers, the steps on the ground, and maybe a few timbers, maybe a piece of relic equipment, but otherwise, we're just going to see flats on the ground. And, unless you knew, you're thinking in terms of a miner, most people would look at that and they wouldn't see anything except a hillside. So a lot of what we're recording is simply the leftover remains. Once in a while we get lucky and have something like this that is a good interpretive help. Is there still gold and silver there? You guys have suggested some of the answers to that question. Is it safe to go in them? Dennis is going to talk real quick about some of the hazards.
I think I'm in the wrong crowd for that. You guys can probably tell me. Actually, anyways, you guys know this stuff as well as I do. This is here is showing, you got here just a typical shaft on the left right here, and on the right is a stope, which would be, and again, for those of you who don't understand, the vertical shaft is actually an opening that was made on purpose. They collapse. We have actually fixed a whole bunch of these ones on the district. I think about 35 of those have been remediated. And things like this too have been. This is a collapsed stope on this collapse. Actually, mine.
What's your definition of remediated?
It means we have plugged them. They are closed with polyurethane
I
foam.
thought you only did one.
We did one at it.
Talking about
Oh,
ads.
one at it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We've done, I think, 36 features all told, 36 openings, portals.
You take any pan samples before you close those puppies up?
No, sir. It's against the law for me to mine. I work for the BLM.
Well, we ought to go along with you then.
Well, get your hind out there, man. See if you can find it. This, obviously, you guys probably know more about the bad things under the air than me. I keep hearing that they're getting H2S in some of the mines around here. Is that true? Do you guys know that?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Sometimes.
I heard it smells like hot eggs.
Okay. I was curious. This one here just shows carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, which of course just asphyxiates you. But people die all the time. These are the things we do find out there. This one we put in because it says that this one does have bad gas in it, bad air in it right here. And
The
they
Mine
give us-
Safety and Health Administration came out and tested the air on that one.
Now, is that an accessible door or is that just a barricade?
Nope, that's a barricade. That's a
That's a
permanent
barricade, and actually the claimant actually put that up there. So that was not a BLM program. That was my understanding from talking about.
And again, just an open shaft on the right. This is the one adit that we did fix. We put a gate on it. This mine is not permanently sealed. I don't know, does anybody know where the Lucky Boy mine is?
You're talking about the one over there in Cascade?
No, sir.
There's a whole bunch of lucky boy mines.
Yeah.
Everybody out there being lucky.
They were on district. This is sealing a shaft with the foam. This is the shaft before on the left, and on the right, that's Ron Brown standing on top of the polyurethane foam.
So how deep do you put the foam? How deep do you fill?
This shaft was about 45 feet deep, I think, 15 meters, I think is what we measured it. What they do is, I believe they put a bottom form in. The puff has to be like twice as wide as it is deep. Excuse me, twice as deep as it is wide. And they put a bottom form in, and they mix this stuff up and pour it down there, and it expands to fill the hole.
So did you close off the Lucky Queen's the portal too?
No, I don't. That's this, and I think there were two shafts that were fixed on this one, but I don't think that any of the horizontal ones were fixed. I think there's only one open one there. Well, there was one that was worked 20 years ago. What's the name of that? Shucks, I forget the name of it.
It's only one that's still open, and it's about 50 feet long. Right back, it actually got a storage, great parking front.
It was partly caved in years ago.
That the high up one, or the one down that's right next to Jeff's place? The higher up one, that one's collapsed now. It's collapsed about 10, 15 feet in.
Yeah.
How long does it take for the foam to degrade?
To degrade?
Yeah.
It's been in use at least 15 years nationwide, and maybe as much as 20.
I guess my question is how does that foam react with the mineralization, especially the iron and sulfides in soil, as far as environmental risks?
If I recall correctly, it's completely inert to almost all things like that. That's why they use it.
Okay.
It's non-reactive. In my opinion, I haven't seen a lot of it, but what I have seen of it, I think that this will fail someday. But what's going to happen is that the friable rock around this, you guys know all this stuff, as soon as it gets exposed, the rock around here crumbles and crumbles and crumbles. Over whatever, in 150 years, it's probably going to collapse. And yeah, because of the pouring rock around it. I really believe that, but I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Is that a oil byproduct, that foam?
I have no clue.
Does it burn good?
Polyurethane.
If it burns good and you have a forest fire, it's going to take it out.
This is required to have at least 24 inches of clean fill on top of the dirt.
Oh, I see. Hide it.
It's been used in other states for, like I said, like 15 years, and it's actually been used places where they've had fires. And so
those who have your own pen?
To burn it.
Then they're gonna mark that on top of the dirt so that when somebody comes along and wants to go down in there and remine that.
It's not marked.
They don't want you to find it. That's why they do it in the first place.
I don't think that's true.
You guys are just the scouts ahead of the party. You're the guinea pigs
Does it?
that's getting everything shut down.
Does it ever concern you, especially, obviously, I do a lot of what you guys, only I'm on this side. Okay?
How come I'm honest?
Because you work for them.
I needed a job.
So needless to say, you're aware of that. Obviously, there's a great difficulty doing mine research. I probably do as much as you guys, maybe more.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you guys are smart and you only do it during work hours. And
That's smart.
And obviously, you know it's very difficult to find records of mining and minerals. And does it ever bother you that when you do fill in, say, system of working some of these pocket mines that are nothing but shaft workings, that you've basically erased the evidence of the mineral discovery there? That essentially, when you're talking about public domain, it's the evidence that the minerals were there and that it was mined, and in the future, it's.
I'll answer directly. The answer is no, because one of the main things that we're doing is collecting data on the location. So we've got very precise coordinates of where that is, and that's recorded.
And what sealed mold is that going to
take
be?
maps, we take photographs, we're documenting these things more in depth than they've ever been documented. We're doing it across the district. We're going to hopefully, we have a sample of more than 400 now.
Are they open to the public, all those maps and the discoveries?
When are they going to be published? Call my boss. These are not my things to answer.
So listen, we've got time for 2 more questions. The 2 gentlemen in the back had their hands up first. We're going to take those questions, and we really do need to wrap it up because we have to be out of the building at 8.
when you guys finally identify where they're all at, please let the sheriffs know where they're at, so we know
I
what
believe,
potential
I,
threats are.
that information, I think, now don't quote me on this, but I believe that information is being compiled for all of the emergency services. That's why we're doing
That's
this.
one of the main reasons. You know, you talk about wildland firefighters. You know, we've got stories from firefighters talking about, yeah, I fell in a hole and broke my leg, and so that stuff does happen. That's one of the first responders, people like that. That's some people we want to have this information.
Pretty blunt.
It would be prudent that you gentlemen step before the coordination committee as well as under the 10th Amendment, which was enacted in 1902. That is a very strong law that is strongly recommended to you and follow through. Again, coordination under the 10th Amendment.
Last question.
Do you have any record of how many people have actually fallen in line path?
Not on the Medford.
Not off the top of my head. You could, that stuff's online. You can go look it up and see. But it's,
Where would I look that up?
you know, possibly the U.S. Bureau of Mines might have statistics. I think the USGS has statistics.
We're not done.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in this,
We're not done.
has that ever happened?
We'll gang up on
Has
that.
anybody fallen in a mine here? Not here, not recently. So you've got, you know, the most
One
recent thing I
person
can think
fell
of
in a
off the top of my
hole
head
and
is the incident that happened in Nevada, which was, what was that, last spring, I guess. You know, a guy fooling around the edge of one of these shafts, fell into it. He actually survived the fall, amazingly. They dropped the camera down, rescuers dropped the camera down, and could see that he was moving around down there. But because it was so unstable, they were not able to effect a rescue for the guy, and they ended up having to leave him there and cave the shaft over, and it's pretty tragic. So
No, you shouldn't have trespassed.
this is a national thing to remember. It's a national program. You know, it's enacted from Washington D.C. and when they're looking at statistics, they're talking about across the whole country, and you do have people dying in abandoned mines across the whole country every year. We really need to stop now.
One last question. It's just real short.
You can come up and talk to me. So
No, it's really short. It's just a very basic question. I know that your program, the Abandoned Mines program, is working with Idaho Department of Geology. Is Dogami here in Oregon also working with you guys?
we are not working with any of those agencies. We're with Medford BLM. As far as we know, we're the only abandoned mines program in Oregon and Washington.
Okay.
Thank you all for coming. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. I don't want to hold you up. I just had a comment of, you know, if we mined all this stuff, we could pay off our national debt rather than
Hey, they
giving
wouldn't
it
be
to China.
abandoned.
Yeah, we put somebody to work.
No question.
Let's, we're going to issue a coordination demand to Abby Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
She's the boss.
Oh, we damn.
Okay, you got it.
I've got the notice.
Okay.
So you want to go with me?
Wait a minute, I got.
What? Sorry to hear that.
Find something. You got.
No, getting a little old to me.